Hey, today on this video, we're going to be talking about the best church live streaming software for 2020, and we're going to start right now. Hey guys, welcome to the Church Media Guy Show. My name is Dave, and if you've not joined us before, I am glad you're here. By the way, if you want to learn how to leverage media and technology so that you can take the gospel to the digital world, then you're going to want to start now by clicking that subscribe button and ringing that bell so that you don't miss a thing. Today we are going to be talking about the best church live streaming software for your church in 2020. And frankly, 2020 and beyond, because a lot of this I've actually been using for many years. By the way, question of the day, if you are live streaming, what are you using? What is the software? How's it working for you? Are you enjoying it? Is it good? Do you have issues with it? Just let me know. Leave a comment below. Best church live streaming software for 2020. I've got a few criteria. Our software needs to be able to use video from cameras and camcorders and other sources. You need to have the ability to use other video sources, and that's kind of important because we're doing more in a lot of churches than just feeding a camera. Now, it needs to be simple enough to just take a camera feed, but it'd be nice if we could get some Bible software in there. The Bible verses. It'd be nice if we could take the feed from ProPresenter and our song lyrics and put them out as part of the stream as well. So if we have that criteria, if we're able to do that, that's what we're going to be talking about. I didn't say that right. Need to be able to have some titles. We need to be able to record to a local hard drive, so we have a local recording of the thing, not just a stream sitting out there. And we need to be able to stream to platforms like YouTube and Facebook Live and others. There's an option basically for each budget. The budgets that you guys have vary from we have no money and we need to do this. We have very little money and I'm spending my own money, all the way up to we can spend a little bit of money on this, but we don't have a lot, to, hey, we've got a blank check and we want to get the best stuff that we possibly can. And so I've got options across the board for that. First off, the three we're going to be talking about is Open Broadcaster software, which we call OBS. So from this point forward, we'll be using the term OBS. We're also going to talk about vMix, and we're going to talk about the TriCaster. And by the way, in order of cheap to most expensive, that's how they're listed: OBS, vMix, and then TriCaster. OBS, Open Broadcaster software, has some really good points to it. First and foremost, it's free. So you can just go and download it, install it, and go to town. It's easy to configure. And when I say easy, I mean it's easy to configure, okay? I actually mentioned it later in the list here. OBS is not elegant, not by any means. It's very utilitarian. It was made by engineers. It was actually made by people that were like streaming their games. They wanted to stream like gameplay, and they needed a way to do it. And so they came up with this open source software project to create a little broadcast studio that anybody could install and run on their computer while they're playing Minecraft or whatever it is. So it was put together on an as-need basis, and as we, as live streamers, have needs, we can submit them to the team that's behind that, and they can incorporate those things. So it's kind of fluid. It is very stable, but it's kind of fluid, and you want more features, and if a lot more people want some of these features, then they can do it. And there's plugins and all kinds of great ways that you can extend it. That's OBS. Hi, I'm using my webcam right here. You can see it's not. It doesn't look. If you've ever looked at any kind of broadcast software, it doesn't look anything like it. You've got scenes over here which you can build. Like here's my left screen, and the source for that is the left display of my desktop here. I've got a webcam, and the source for that is my C930, and I can move it around and do what I want with it. And then when I'm ready for it to go live, then I can hit cut. But it's not elegant. But what's cool about it is once you understand how all this stuff works, then you can really make it sing. I used OBS for a couple of years. I used it for well over a year at my church when I took us from the garbage stream that we were doing. Actually, garbage would have been prettier. I grabbed my laptop and I installed OBS on it, and I got a capture card, a Ultra Studio mini recorder from Blackmagic, and hooked it up and hooked up a camcorder and went to town. I used it here before I started using vMix, which is the next one we're going to talk about. I used it here doing the Church Media Guy show from the beginning to, the time that I actually installed vMix, which was a little over a year ago. It's good. It's free. It's the best option for you if you're looking for something and don't have any money, but you need to get started. You can literally do it with a webcam. Now, I tell churches, don't rely on doing that. But if the difference between starting and stopping, or starting and not starting, is we have a webcam, can we live stream with it? Then yeah, go ahead and at least get your feet wet. Okay, doing it with a webcam and being able to reach people, especially the people that aren't there. That would be there, like they're sick or something like that, is better than not. Okay. Now, I would very quickly move beyond using a webcam. I would get into a $200 cheap camcorder and something like this for $150. You can get a 10-fold, 100-fold better image if you do it that way. It does use external cameras, webcams. It uses NDI, which is a instead of having hardware that you plug stuff into, like, okay, this uses an SDI connection and can you see it? There we go, and an HDMI connection. Okay, so I have a camera and I plug it in physically to this. NDI stands for Network Device Interface, and what that does is lets you take a video signal either through an adapter and plug it into a hub on your switch. A port on your network switch. Okay, so literally they make cameras that have an HDMI port on it, an SDI port on it, and then a network jack. And you plug the network jack and plug it into your network, and then go over to OBS or vMix or the TriCaster, and you add a new camera source, and you tell it an NDI source, and it goes out and looks on your network and goes, here's one, and then there it is. It's audio and video coming over your, up to 4K coming over your network instead of having a dedicated video cable plugged into it. That's NDI in a nutshell. It's really important that you have software that can support that, because the future of broadcast video, of live streaming, of mixing video is going to revolve around that standard, because you can go really long distances. It's brilliant. If you wanted to, let's say you wanted to do something in your fellowship hall. Well, you don't want to pick up your computer and the cameras and the tripods and all the cabling and all this sort of stuff and lug it into the fellowship hall and then set it up and then lug it back up to the media booth. You don't want to have to do that. If you could grab a camera and go and take it to the fellowship hall and then plug it into the network jack in the wall and then have somebody sit up there and go, look, camera one, hey, here it is. It's really cool. So we'll do a little bit of a how-to or a deep dive at some point on NDI. The thing is, though, is that OBS, vMix, and TriCaster, all three support it, and it's cool. What's neat about OBS is it's cross-platform, so you don't have to commit to being Mac or PC. And it works with a lot of different hardware specs. And like I said, it's not elegant, but it's really capable. When we talk about hardware specs, the beefier your system, the better it's going to be. That's kind of across the board. Okay, you can, with OBS, you can have an i5 laptop, and you can have 8 gigabytes of RAM, and you can have a hard drive, and you can use your webcam, or you can use like a capture device like this, and you can get 720p video live streaming and being recorded. Okay, 720p is fine. Facebook is still taking 720p. It's not everybody can do 1080 on Facebook, so that's fine. And kind of the standard for streaming right now is still 720p, so that's okay. You can get started with that and then upgrade. Obviously, the more you throw at it, the better. Well, the more stuff you're asking it to do, several cameras, multiple overlays, animations, all that sort of stuff, then the more resources it's going to take, which means the more resources you're going to need. Okay, so, and you can tune it. You can. There's all kinds of tweaks and stuff like that. But I always tell people, look, if you're going to live stream, start with a computer that's like an i7 and has 16 gigs of RAM and or better, and has like an SSD hard drive, that sort of thing. And if you have a dedicated graphics card, whether it's in your laptop, which they do, I've got a Razer Blade sitting over there that's got a dedicated graphics card. And the more memory that's on that, the more that it'll be able to actually handle, because a graphics card can actually carry some of that load that your processor, your CPU, your i5 or your i7 would have to do. So anyway, what the net that you need to know out of that is that you can get started with OBS with a spec machine and actually get started. Just improve as you can. Let's talk about vMix. vMix is the happy medium. It's the really, really, really happy medium. vMix is awesome because it's affordable, and it has a traditional broadcast workflow. That's one of the big things that I like. I showed you OBS, and you saw that it's like you got a couple of columns here, and then you can just choose items in the column and stuff. That's not the traditional broadcast workflow. If you've ever seen anything related to like broadcast television behind the scenes in the control room, if you're watching any of the news shows, sometimes they show people in the control room and all that sort of stuff. And what they're looking at is like multiple monitors for like each camera, so they can see, camera one's monitor and camera two's monitor. You can do all that with vMix and with the TriCaster as well. It's got that traditional workflow and visual metaphor for that people have been using for decades in broadcast television. So it's really handy to be able to, if you come from television or if you're familiar with that, to sit down and see familiar stuff. It just means you can go get started a whole lot faster. So with the basic version, it's free and you get 4 inputs. HD version, you get 4 inputs. SD version, you get 1,000. HD version, you get 1,000, and it goes from free to $350. Then you can jump up into the 4K version, and that's great. It's wonderful. Some people are streaming 4K, but a lot aren't. It will get to be the standard over time, so just keep that in mind. If you have the $700 and want to go ahead and invest in it, do a little future proofing, go ahead. You can always upgrade later, which is cool. And then the Pro version gives you a lot more bells and whistles. A big difference, though, in between these, the basic and like the regular, is the number of overlay channels. So you get 1 overlay channel, which means that you can have like a title come overlay and then come back down, which means like just 1 at a time. With 4, it means I could have like the title come up, and then I could have a picture-in-picture, and then I could have 2 cameras, side by side. You get more flexibility as you go through that. But vMix is great. I would definitely recommend, if you've got some money to spend, go ahead and start looking at this. I mean, even if you max it out and get the Pro version, you get instant replay, like with the 4K. You get the ability to do instant replay with 1 camera. If you get the Pro version, you can do instant replay with 4. One of the things that's really cool is that the HD version gives you the ability to use vMix call. So they basically have Skype, not real Skype. They have their own version of Skype built into the software. Why would we want to do that at church? What if you wanted to interview somebody? What if your pastor was remote and wanted to be a part of the service or give a message or do something like that while he's remote? Well, now he could call in and do it. What if you wanted to interview your missionary while they're out in the field? Well, now you have the ability to do that. It's really cool. So that's why for me and for a lot of churches, I say get into vMix and get the $350, the HD, regular HD, whatever you want to call it. They're not very inventive with their names, but get that version, the $350 version, because it kind of open ends you a little bit, so you can do more. And it's only $350. I know if you don't have any budget, it's not it seems like a lot, but in a world where we deal with $10,000 and $20,000 worth of budgets, $350 is not a lot. Okay, so take a look at it. It's pretty darn cool. Let me get back over to the thingy here and present. There we go. Now let's talk about the TriCaster. The TriCaster is head and shoulders the best out there. One of the best possible things about the TriCaster is that it is plug and play. What that means is, and I down in the list I say that it's an enclosed system as well, and that's because Newtek, when they set out to do all this, they said they want to basically be able to have a system that they can carry and that they can sit down, turn on, plug in cameras, and hit go live, and they're live. So that's what they did. They built a box that, and they actually like built some of their own hardware. Okay, so they like engineered their own capture cards and things like that, that would work with the motherboards that they had, and that they could write their software to directly work with and all that. So they're not using standard off-the-shelf stuff. They are, they're not using like Blackmagic things that, they don't buy a whole bunch of Blackmagic capture cards and then put them in a box and stuff. That's what you would do with vMix. With vMix, you would get yourself like an i7 desktop computer or an i9, and you'd put in like some Blackmagic cards or some capture cards, Elgato, cards or something like that. You'd put these in there, and then you'd plug your cameras into it, and and it's running Windows 10, and so you need to keep Windows 10 updated, and you hope that vMix updates their stuff and that they all work together. And when you get graphics cards, when those drivers get updated, you want to make sure that you update. Does vMix work with the latest version of the drivers? It's PC management at that point. And by the way, vMix is PC only, so you're not going to get a Mac version or anything. But when you're doing that with and building it on your own, you can pick all the hardware and software, and you can really fine tune and all that. Okay, and if you're a builder and a tinkerer, there is a lot to be said about knowing. Well, we always say you need to know your signal chain. You need to know how the data flows through, from the camera into this box and through this cable. And you need to know all that sort of stuff. You need to know it all with your audio as well. When you've built the system and put the system together and troubleshot it and all that, that system. And when something starts to go wrong, you're like, I think it may be this. So that's a huge plus, okay, for building your own. And vMix lets you do it, and lets you do it in an affordable way. TriCaster, out of the box, works. Doesn't get any simpler than that. I've got one that's over 10 years old on my set out in the garage. Works. From the time I got it, boot it up, plug in cameras, say start a new session, and here comes the thing, and all of a sudden my cameras are showing up in there, and I preview one and cut, and now one is being broadcast. And then I go to 2, and it is being broadcast. If I want to, I can make titles. It's got a title generator, so I can go in there and input a graphic and put in my titles and stuff, and then basically have a little template, and then I can like duplicate it a whole bunch of times, and I can have my pastor and the worship leader, and we're going to be getting started in a few minutes, and all this kind of stuff out of the box. It's great, and it uses the same basic workflow and visual metaphor that traditional broadcast works. So you can look at vMix and you can look at the TriCaster sitting next to each other, and either one of them you can sort of jump in and get running. It's pretty cool. The TriCaster lets you use external cameras. I left webcams in there. Not so much webcams. That was a mistake. But you can use external cameras. You can use NDI. You can do screen capturing. And a lot of that, by the way, happens just like any other kind of camera. So if you got a laptop and you got ProPresenter running on it, you could take the HDMI port and run it into your TriCaster, and now camera 4 is the ProPresenter computer, or the computer running the Bible software. That's literally what I do at our church. Is I have an iMac sitting next to me that runs the Olive Tree Bible Study software, and I scroll through the scripture as he's reading the scripture, and it comes in as camera 4. It's cool. They're very stable, very, very stable. They are kind of the quickest way to get going. You can buy a TriCaster. It can arrive on Friday. You can go in there and set it up and hook up your cameras. And I can get a TriCaster up and running and be ready to stream inside of 30 minutes and have many times. So setting it up at your church and getting it deployed is really easy. And they got great support and all that, so it's really cool. The main thing that I like is that it's the professional level and quality. So both with vMix and with the TriCaster, you can get professional results, very professional results. In fact, web shows, live streams, TV shows, news broadcasts, some of them use TriCasters in their things. You would be surprised how many web shows out there for years have been using a TriCaster, and they're the ones that just look really professional. It's really cool. Their pricing is $5, $6, $7, $8, $10, $15,000 for the hardware, depending on the level that you get. So it is an investment, and it's an investment that yields great results and will last you a long time. So if you're building something from scratch, like you're building your new worship center, and you want to, invest in doing something like that, then TriCaster is definitely the way to go. So those are the three. Those are my top 3 software apps that you can use to do your live streaming: OBS, vMix, and your TriCaster. And the TriCaster is hardware and software, because it all comes as one package. Again, which is why it's a lot more expensive than the others. Not just a software solution. $350 for vMix versus several thousand for the computer and all the stuff and engineering that they've done to make this little bulletproof system. Hopefully that gives you an idea of some places that you can start. And if you want to go a little deeper with this, then you need to connect with Justin and I. In fact, I've got a guide for you guys. I call it Live Streaming for Churches the Easy Way. If you go to easylivestreaming.com, you can download a copy of that. I'm actually working on the updated version of that with some newer information, newer cameras and all that. But the stuff in there is rock solid. I talk about these things in there, and I even talk about like the live stream thing that one of the folks in our chat was just talking about earlier. So go grab a copy of that, and hopefully this has been helpful. See you in the next video.